The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with voices. Aliens from different worlds sat in their special seats, talking and waiting. The room was huge, with lights that changed colors and walls made of some kind of crystal that showed the stars. Outside, High Chancellor Vexter stood up from his seat. He was from a race called the Krillians. His body was covered in hard shells, and he had 4 eyes that glowed in the dim light. When he stood, everyone became quiet. "The humans have crossed the line," Vexter said. His voice was loud and angry. "They take our space. They do not follow our rules. They act like they own everything. This ends today." The Krillian Dominion, working with the Xanther Collective and the Morpheus Empire, now declares war on the human race. The room filled with whispers and gasps. Some aliens nodded their heads. Others looked worried. Everyone knew that humans were different. They came from Earth, a planet that was known as a death world. Most aliens came from safe, calm planets. Earth was dangerous, full of storms and predators and diseases that could kill you. In the back of the room, far from the important seats, sat one human. His name was Jake Morrison. He was tall compared to most aliens, with brown hair that was turning gray. His eyes were blue and calm. He had been working as a diplomat for 15 years, living among aliens and learning their ways. Jake did not stand up. He did not shout or get angry. He did not even reach for his communication device to call Earth. Instead, he just sat back in his chair and folded his hands. A small smile appeared on his face. Next to him sat his assistant, a small alien named Pix. Pix looked like an otter that walked on 2 legs, with fur that shined in different colors. Pix was shaking as he leaned close to Jake. "Ambassador Morrison," Pix whispered. His voice was full of fear. "They just declared war. Should we not do something? Should we not call for help?" Jake's smile got a little bigger. "We are doing something, Pix. We are waiting." "Waiting? Waiting for what?" "For them to understand what they have done," Jake said quietly. On the main floor, Vexter kept talking. He told everyone about all the problems with humans. He talked about how the Coalition had 300 warships ready to fight. He said they had better weapons and better plans. He said humans would be pushed back to Earth and kept there forever. Jake looked at his watch. It was an old watch that his grandfather had given him. He was one of the few humans who still wore mechanical watches. Most people use computers now, but Jake liked this watch. It reminded him of home. He did some math in his head. The message about this war declaration would reach Earth in about 6 hours through the quantum communication network. Earth's response would come in 12 hours? Maybe less if they hurried. Jake settled into his chair to wait. Other ambassadors started leaving the room. Some of them looked at Jake with sad eyes. They thought he was in shock. They thought he had given up. They thought Earth would lose this war. They were all wrong. Pix kept moving around nervously. "Ambassador, please. Should we not at least file a complaint? Ask for someone to help us negotiate?" Jake shook his head slowly. "It is too late for that, Pix. They have already decided. 300 warships are probably already moving. They have made their choice. But Earth will want to negotiate, yes? They will want to make peace?" Jake looked at his assistant. Something in his eyes made Pix lean back a little. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was something else. Something old and cold and dangerous. "Earth does not negotiate when someone attacks us, Pix. That is not how humans work," Jake said. "You know what they say about us? About where we come from. That Earth is a death world. Class 12. I know this. But do you know what it means to survive on a Class 12 death world?" Jake interrupted. "Really know what it means?" Pix shook his head. "It means everything on our planet wanted to kill us. The animals. The weather. The diseases. Everything," Jake explained. "We had to become the best hunters just to survive. We had to be smarter than everything else. We learned to make fire and tools and weapons. We survived ice ages and volcanoes and asteroids hitting our planet. We took wolves and turned them into dogs. We took wild plants and made them into food. We looked at the oceans and said we would sail them. We looked at the sky and said we would fly through it. We looked at space and said we would go there too. Jake stood up. Several nearby aliens jumped when he moved. They just declared war on a species that had to become the most dangerous thing on one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy. Do you know what the scary part is? Pix stared up at him with wide eyes. We got bored with just surviving, Jake said. So we started building cities and making art and writing music. We started dreaming about the future. And now someone has given us a reason to remember what we were before all of that. They have reminded us that we are predators. Jake started walking toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the big room. Pix hurried after him. Where are you going? Pix asked. To my office. I need to get ready. Ready for what? Jake stopped at the door. He looked back at the Galactic Council. He looked at Vexter, who was still talking about how humans would be defeated. He looked at all the aliens who thought they understood what was about to happen. I need to get ready for the arrival, Jake said. Arrival of what? Pix asked, though he was starting to understand. The Armada, Pix. Earth's Armada is coming. Jake walked out of the chamber. Behind him, the Galactic Council kept talking about their war plans. They talked about their 300 ships and their powerful weapons. They talked about how they would win easily. None of them understood what was really coming. None of them knew that Earth had been preparing for this kind of war for over 100 years. None of them knew that human ships were already moving, that human weapons were already being loaded, that human soldiers were already preparing. They had declared war on humanity. Now they would learn what that really meant. Jake Morrison walked through the halls of the diplomatic station with calm steps. He was not worried. He was not scared. He knew his people. He knew Earth, and he knew that somewhere out there in space, an armada was already on its way. The coalition thought they had 300 ships, and that would be enough. They were about to learn that humans did not do anything halfway. When someone declared war on Earth, Earth responded with overwhelming force. Jake reached his office and sat down at his desk. He poured himself a cup of coffee. Real coffee from Earth, which cost a lot of money out here in space. He took a sip and smiled. Let them have their moment of confidence. Let them think they had won before the fighting even started. In a few hours they would see the truth. Earth was coming. And Earth was bringing everything. 12 hours had passed since the war declaration. Jake sat in his small office on the diplomatic station, drinking coffee and reading reports on his datapad. Through his window, he could see the coalition fleet getting ready to leave. Huge Krillian warships, Xanther carriers, and Morpheus destroyers moved into formation. Their metal sides reflected the light from the nearby star. It was beautiful in a way. 300 warships, all working together. It was enough power to destroy a continent. Most species would surrender just looking at it, but humans were not most species. The door to Jake's office made a soft sound. Come in, he said without looking up. Pix walked in carrying another datapad. Ambassador, the Council has sent an official message. All human ships must leave Coalition space in 48 hours. If they do not leave, they will be destroyed. They are calling it a humanitarian gesture. Jake made a sound that was almost a laugh. Humanitarian. That is funny. He put down his datapad and looked at Pix. Have our ships responded? 3 commercial ships have filed plans to leave. The survey ship in the Deneb sector saw the message but has not moved. And the military observer ship, let me guess, Jake interrupted. Commander Lisa Hayes on the ESS Vigilant said no very politely. Pix's eyes went wide. How did you know? Because I know Lisa Hayes. We worked together 10 years ago before she joined the military, Jake said with a smile. She is not going to move unless Earth Command tells her to. That woman once stood in front of a charging Thraxian battle bear without moving. You think some warships scare her? But Ambassador, the Vigilant is just an observer ship. It has almost no weapons. If the Coalition attacks, they will not attack, Jake said with confidence. How can you be sure? Jake stood and walked to the window. He pointed at the fleet outside. Because attacking the Vigilant would be stupid. Right now, they have declared war. They have shown their military power, but Earth has not responded yet. If they attack one of our ships before Earth responds, it changes everything. I do not understand, Pix said. Right now, they can say they gave us a chance. They can say they were merciful. They can say they tried to avoid fighting, Jake explained. But if they fire first, before Earth even responds, then it becomes something else. It becomes about revenge. And trust me, Pix, they really do not want it to be about revenge. Pix was quiet for a moment. You keep talking like Earth has already decided to fight. Could they not negotiate? Could they not offer to compromise? They could, Jake agreed. But they will not. You need to understand something about humans, Pix. We are tribal. An attack on one human is an attack on all humans. When Vexer declared war, he did not just challenge Earth's government. He challenged every single human alive. That seems extreme, Pix said softly. Maybe, but it is who we are, Jake said. He turned to look at his assistant. Do you know what happened the last time someone attacked Earth? Before we joined the galactic community? Pix shook his head. There was a war on Earth, a big one. During that war, a nation called Japan attacked a place called Pearl Harbor. They killed about 2,400 people. They sank some ships. They thought it would make us surrender, Jake said. His eyes looked far away, remembering the history he had learned. Instead, we built the most powerful weapon ever made. We built the atomic bomb. And we used it, twice. We ended the war by making 2 cities disappear in fire and light. That is horrible, Pix whispered. Yes, Jake said quietly. War is always horrible. But you asked why I am not panicking? Why I am not trying to negotiate. He looked directly at Pix. It is because I know that right now, somewhere in space, Earth's military is already moving. They are not talking about it. They are not debating. They are loading weapons and preparing ships and getting ready to show the coalition exactly why attacking humans is a mistake. Just then, Jake's communication panel lit up. The message was from Earth, from the office of the Secretary of Defense. Jake touched the panel and a hologram appeared. It showed a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and a military uniform covered in medals. This was Secretary of Defense Patricia Grant. Jake had met her twice before. She was known for being polite, smart, and absolutely ruthless when needed. Ambassador Morrison, she said. Her voice was clear even across the light years between them. I trust you heard about the declaration. I was there when it happened, Madam Secretary. Then you know why I am calling. We need you to stay at your post. Do not evacuate. Do not show any fear or worry. Understood. What is Earth's official response? Grant's face did not change, but her eyes became hard. The President is making a statement in 1 hour. The short version is this. We reject the coalition's claims. We condemn their declaration of war. And we will respond with appropriate force to any hostile action. Appropriate force, Jake repeated. That is deliberately vague. It needs to be. We do not want to show our hand yet, Grant said. She leaned forward slightly. Jake, I'm going to tell you something classified. In 36 hours, the 5th Fleet will arrive in your sector. All 12 carrier groups. 150 warships, plus support vessels. Jake felt surprised. The 5th Fleet was Earth's primary rapid response force. It was designed for power projection in deep space. Deploying the entire fleet was unprecedented. That is half our deep space combat capability, Jake said. It is. And that is just the beginning, Grant said with a cold smile. The 7th and 9th Fleets are being recalled from patrol. By the time this is over, we will have 400 ships in the region. We will outnumber them and outgun them. That will take weeks to fully deploy. 48 hours for the first wave. The rest will arrive as needed, Grant said. Her face softened a little. I know this is difficult, Jake. You have spent years building relationships there. Some of those delegates were your friends? Were my friends? Jake corrected. The moment they voted for this war, that changed. I am sorry. Do not be. This is what happens. They made their choice, Jake said, standing straighter. I will stay at my post and continue normal operations. If the Coalition asks about our response, what should I tell them? Tell them the truth. Earth is reviewing the situation and will respond in due course. Be polite, be professional, but give them nothing they can use. Yes, ma'am. Grant nodded. One more thing. Commander Hayes on the Vigilant has been ordered to maintain her position and observe Coalition fleet movements. If they threaten her, she is authorized to defend herself. They would be fools to attack her. Agreed. But we are dealing with people who thought declaring war on humanity was a good idea. So their judgment is already questionable, Grant said. Her image flickered. Stay safe, Ambassador. Remember, you are not alone. Help is coming. The communication ended. Jake stared at the empty space where the hologram had been. Pix spoke quietly. 400 ships. That is more than the Coalition's entire fleet. It is. This is really going to happen. A real war. Jake walked back to his desk and picked up his coffee. It had gone cold. He drank it anyway. Yes, unless the Coalition backs down in the next 36 hours, this is really going to happen. And if they do not back down? Jake looked out at the Coalition fleet. He looked at the warships preparing to attack his people, his species, his home. Then they are going to learn a painful lesson, Jake said. Humans are civilized, Pix. We have art and music and poetry. We have laws and ethics and philosophy. But we are not tame. We are not safe. And when someone threatens us, when someone declares war on our species, we remember what we were. We remember the hunters. We remember the warriors. We remember why Earth is called a death world. Outside the window, the Coalition fleet continued preparing. They had no idea what was coming. They had no idea that in a distant star system an armada was already moving. An armada that would arrive with a simple message: you declared war on humanity. Now face the consequences. The next 30 hours felt like years. Jake kept doing his normal work, attending small council meetings, filing reports, and answering messages as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed, and everyone knew it. The diplomatic station felt like a bomb waiting to explode. Delegates gathered in small groups, whispering to each other. Security guards walked the halls more often. Every few hours, another ship left the civilian docks as species who did not want to be part of this war decided to leave. Jake noticed that the Quellan delegation had packed their things but had not left yet. Ambassador Trill, who was Pix's boss, had sent Jake a message. The message said the Quellan people were sorry about the situation and did not want any part of the war. It was the closest thing to an apology Jake had received from any alien. You should leave with your people, Jake told Pix during one of their meetings. There is no reason for you to stay here. Pix shook his head firmly. Ambassador Trill suggested I leave. I said no. My job is here with you. Pix, if fighting starts, then I will be here doing my job, Pix interrupted. Jake was surprised by how firm Pix sounded. You have taught me much about humans these past 3 years, Ambassador. Honor, duty, loyalty. These are not just human ideas. My people understand them too. Jake felt warmth in his chest. Thank you, Pix. That means a lot to me. Besides, Pix added with a small smile, I want to see this armada you keep talking about. Is it really as impressive as you say? You will find out soon enough. The hours kept passing. Jake received regular updates from Commander Hayes on the Vigilant. The Coalition fleet had moved to surround her ship. They were not quite threatening her, but they were making their presence known. Lisa's reports were professional and calm, but Jake could tell she was ready for a fight if necessary. 20-4 hours before the Fifth Fleet was supposed to arrive, High Chancellor Vexler asked to meet with Jake. It was phrased as a request, but it was really a demand. Jake thought about saying no, but decided it would be useful to hear what the Krillian leader wanted to say. They met in a neutral conference room. Only their assistants came with them. Vexler's 4 eyes studied Jake with what looked like confusion or maybe worry. Ambassador Morrison, Vexler began, I am puzzled by your behavior. Your government has been mostly silent. You personally have shown no sign of worry. I must ask, does Earth plan to surrender? Jake took his time answering. He poured himself a glass of water and took a drink before looking at Vexter. Earth does not surrender, Chancellor. We never have, and we never will. Then what is your government's response to our declaration? You will find out when they are ready to tell you? Vexter's main eyes narrowed. You are either very brave or very foolish, Ambassador. My fleet has 300 warships. Our intelligence says Earth has maybe 400 ships total, spread across dozens of sectors. Even if you called back every ship, you would only slightly outnumber us? And that is assuming you could gather them all before we attack. Your intelligence is old, Jake said simply. Is it? Please, tell me how. Jake smiled. I do not think I will. But I will tell you this. You have made a serious mistake, Chancellor. Not in your military numbers, those might be right or wrong, but in understanding humans. And what have I misunderstood? You think this is about territory, about resources or expansion rights or politics, Jake said, leaning forward. It is not. The moment you declared war, this became about something else. You challenged us. You threatened our species. And now you are going to find out why every predator instinct in the galaxy says to avoid Deathworld species. Are you threatening me, Ambassador? No, I am making an observation, Chancellor, Jake said, standing up. Is there anything else? I have reports to file. Vexter stayed in his seat. His face was hard to read. I reached out hoping to find peace. A way to stop this before people die. Did you? Jake's voice was soft but cold. Or did you hope to see me panic? To beg for mercy or offer deals that would make your coalition look strong? He shook his head. I have been a diplomat for 20 years, Chancellor. I can read between the lines. This was not about peace. This was about trying to make me afraid. You seem very confident for someone whose species is outnumbered. I am confident. But not because of numbers, Jake said. He walked toward the door, then stopped. Do you know what I am confident in, Chancellor? My people on Earth, we have a saying. Do not mistake our kindness for weakness. We are diplomats, explorers, scientists, artists. We want peace. We prefer peace. But when someone threatens us, when someone declares war on our species, we become something else. And what is that? Jake looked back at Vexter. The look in his eyes made the alien leader shift in his seat. We become the apex predator that evolved on one of the deadliest planets in the galaxy. The species that looked at fire and ice and storms and said, we will master you. The same species that split the atom, walked on other worlds, and decided that even the stars were not beyond our reach, Jake said. You wanted to see Earth's response, Chancellor? Wait 6 hours. You will get your answer. Jake left the conference room with Pix following behind him. Vexter sat alone, feeling something he had not felt in many years. The final 6 hours before the Fifth Fleet arrived were the longest of Jake's life. He spent them in his office, watching communications and checking the Coalition's fleet positions. The warships had finished preparing and were starting to move toward human territory. They were confident in their numbers and their plans. They had no idea what was coming. At exactly 6 in the morning station time, Jake's long-range sensors detected the first jump signatures. He stood at his window, looking at the empty space beyond the station, and allowed himself a small smile. Pix, he called. You should see this. Pix joined him at the window. What am I looking at? Wait, space began to ripple and twist. Reality bent as something massive started to come out of faster-than-light travel. 1 jump signature appeared, then 5, then 20. Then too many to count. The Fifth Fleet had arrived. First came the destroyers, fast and deadly, covered in weapons and sensors. Then came the cruisers, massive ships built for long battles. And finally the carriers. 12 of them. Each one was like a floating city that could launch hundreds of fighters and bombers. But it was not just warships. The fleet had brought support ships, medical ships, supply transports, and mobile repair stations. This was not a small force for a quick fight. This was an invasion fleet, designed for long combat operations far from home. Jake checked his datapad. 153 warships, plus 72 support vessels, 225 ships total, all showing Earth's United Fleet insignia. By the ancestors, Pix whispered. That is impossible. No species can move that many ships that quickly. Humans can, Jake said simply. We developed our jump drives differently. Faster charge times, longer ranges, better coordination. We had to. Earth is far from the galactic core, far from major trade routes. If we were going to explore the galaxy, we needed to move quickly. On his communication panel, dozens of alerts appeared as the station's sensors registered the fleet. Emergency broadcasts went out on all channels. Somewhere in the council chambers, alarms were sounding. Jake's private channel activated. Commander Hayes' face appeared. She looked professional, but there was satisfaction in her eyes. Ambassador Morrison, this is Commander Hayes of the S. Vigilant. The Fifth Fleet has arrived safely. Admiral Carl Bennett sends his regards and asks for your assessment of the situation. Tell the Admiral that the Coalition fleet is currently near the Theta 7 sector, about 3 light hours from this station. They were preparing to advance on our survey outpost at Deneb. I do not think they are going anywhere now. Understood. The Admiral also asks if you need evacuation. Negative. I am staying. This is where I can help most. Copy that, Ambassador. Vigilant out. The communication ended. Jake stared at the assembled Armada. In the distance, he could see the Coalition fleet starting to respond. Their ships were breaking formation and regrouping. They had been completely surprised. What happens now? Pix asked quietly. Now the Coalition realizes they made a terrible mistake. And if they are smart, they will look for a way to back down without losing too much face. And if they are not smart? Jake's face became hard. Then Admiral Bennett will show them why. Earth's military has been preparing for space war since before we had faster-than-light travel. We are a species that spent thousands of years fighting ourselves. Pix, we have had more practice at war than most civilizations have existed. If the Coalition wants a fight. He did not finish. He did not need to. Outside the window, the Fifth Fleet hung in space like a promise and a threat. Earth's Armada had arrived, and the galaxy was about to remember why predators should be feared. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting less than an hour after the Fifth Fleet appeared. Jake walked into the chamber with his head high, Pix following behind him. The atmosphere had changed completely from the meeting where war was declared. Before, the delegates had been confident, even excited. Now, fear filled the air like smoke. High Chancellor Vexler stood at his podium. His 4 eyes kept moving between Jake and the tactical display that showed where the human fleet was positioned. The Krillian's confidence had disappeared completely. Ambassador Morrison, Vexler began. His voice did not have the power it had before. The arrival of Earth's fleet is unexpected. We had hoped for a diplomatic solution before any military forces were sent. Jake took his time walking to his seat. He let the silence stretch out. Every eye in the chamber watched him. Finally, he spoke. His voice was calm and measured. That is an interesting way to rewrite history, Chancellor. As I remember, you declared war first. You gave us 48 hours to leave. You sent 300 warships to enforce your demands. He pointed at the tactical display. Earth simply responded to your declaration. Did you expect us to send diplomats? We expected a proportional response, Vexler said weakly. This is proportional. You threatened our species with military force. We answered with military force. Seems perfectly reasonable to me. A delegate from the Xanther Collective stood up. His name was Kleichter. He was an insect-like creature whose mandibles clicked nervously when he spoke. Ambassador, your fleet outnumbers our combined forces by 2 to 1. This is an escalation beyond— No, Jake interrupted. His voice was sharp. This is not an escalation. This is a response. There is a difference. He stood and several delegates actually jumped. You wanted to talk about escalation? Let us talk about how a coalition of three major powers declared war on a single species that had done nothing wrong. Let us talk about how you surrounded one of our observer ships with warships. Let us talk about how you gave us 2 days to leave or face destruction. Jake walked down to the main floor. His footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. Earth did not escalate anything. We just made sure that if you wanted a war, you would get one. And now that you see what that looks like, suddenly everyone wants to talk about diplomacy. Ambassador Morrison, another voice called out. It was Ambassador Trill of the Quellan delegation, Pix's superior. The older Quellan looked tired. Please understand, not all of us supported this declaration. Many of us voted against it or abstained. But the coalition had enough votes to proceed. I know, Jake said. His tone became a little softer. And I appreciate that your people tried to prevent this, Ambassador Trill, but the declaration passed. War was declared. And now we are all dealing with what happens next. Vexler spoke again. Desperation filled his voice. Surely there is room for negotiation. A way to resolve this peacefully. The Dominion is willing to discuss. Are you willing to withdraw your declaration of war? Silence filled the chamber. That is what I thought, Jake said. He turned to face the full assembly. Here's what is going to happen. Earth's Fifth Fleet will stay where it is. Our survey teams will continue their work. Our commercial vessels will operate freely. And the coalition will withdraw its fleet and cancel its declaration of war. And if we refuse? Clychter asked. His tone said he already knew the answer. Jake's face became cold. Then Admiral Bennett has permission to use whatever force is necessary to protect human interests and people. And I should mention that the Fifth Fleet is just the beginning. The Seventh and Ninth Fleets are coming here now. By the end of the week, Earth will have 400 warships in this sector. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. 400 ships. It was more than most species had in their entire military. Impossible, Vexler whispered. No species keeps a fleet that big. The cost alone. Earth maintains a fleet of over 800 warships, Jake said calmly. Plus support vessels, system defense platforms, and rapid response forces. We have been building our military since before we joined the galactic community. You want to know why? He pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's position in the galaxy. The blue planet hung in space, beautiful and alone. Because we are isolated out here. Earth is far from the galactic core, far from major trade routes. When we developed faster-than-light travel, we knew we would be expanding into an unknown and potentially hostile universe. So we prepared. We built ships. We trained crews. We made plans for rapid deployment and long operations far from home. Jake zoomed in on the tactical display. And we built all of this while keeping diplomatic relations, doing scientific research, and engaging in peaceful trade. Because that is what we wanted, peace. He turned back to face Vexler directly. But we are prepared for war. We are very good at war. Earth's history is full of conflict. We have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We know tactics, strategy, logistics. We have fought in deserts and jungles, oceans and mountains, in frozen lands and burning heat. We have fought with swords and arrows, rifles and tanks, aircraft and missiles. Jake's voice became quieter but more intense. And every single one of those conflicts taught us lessons. Lessons we applied to space combat. Lessons that are now built into every ship in that fleet, every plan, every backup plan. He paused. You declared war on a species that has been preparing for space war for over a century. Did you really think we would not be ready? Vexler sat down heavily. His 4 eyes dimmed. Around the chamber, delegates whispered urgently to each other. The reality of the situation was finally clear to them. Ambassador Trill spoke quietly. What are Earth's terms, Ambassador Morrison? I am not authorized to negotiate terms. I am an observer, not a negotiator. But I can tell you what Admiral Bennett's orders are. Maintain position. Defend all human assets. Respond with overwhelming force to any hostile action. Jake crossed his arms. If you want to discuss terms, you need to talk directly with Earth's government. I'm sure Secretary Grant would be happy to arrange a conversation, and in the meantime? Trill asked. In the meantime, both fleets stay where they are. Your coalition forces stay on your side, our forces stay on ours, and nobody does anything stupid. Jake's face became hard again. But understand this. If even one shot is fired at a human ship, if one of our people is harmed, if there is any hostile action at all, then the fighting starts. Admiral Bennett will not ask for permission. He will not wait for orders. He will respond immediately and with extreme force. Clyctor's mandibles clicked rapidly. That is like threatening to destroy us all. No, Jake corrected. It is a promise of consequences. We will not target civilians. We will not attack non-combatants. We will follow the rules of warfare as the galaxy has established them. But we will destroy every single military asset you send against us, and we will keep destroying them until you stop sending them. He let that sink in before continuing. That is the difference between humans and what you think we are. We are not monsters. We are not trying to kill everyone. We are civilized beings who happen to be very good at protecting ourselves. If you leave us alone, we will leave you alone. But if you threaten us, if you attack us, if you try to destroy us, Jake shook his head, then you will discover why species from Deathworlds do not just survive. We dominate. High Chancellor Vexler finally found his voice. This session is over. The Council will discuss the situation and tell you our decision. As delegates left the chamber, many looked nervously at Jake. Pix came to his side. The Quellen was shaking slightly. Ambassador, was all of that true? About Earth's military? Every word, Jake said. I actually left some things out. We have weapon systems I did not mention, abilities that are still secret, and a population that will support a war for years if necessary. That is frightening. It is, Jake agreed. War is always frightening. That is why we tried so hard to avoid it. But since the Coalition forced the issue, he shrugged. They are about to learn a lesson that has been taught since the beginning of time. Do not pick fights you cannot win. Outside the station, the Fifth Fleet stayed in position, a silent armada waiting for orders. And somewhere in the cold depths of space, two more fleets were racing toward the conflict zone. Ready to support Earth's position, the Coalition had declared war on humanity. Now they had to decide. Would they back down, or would they force Earth to show exactly how dangerous a Deathworld species could be? Jake knew what he hoped they would choose. But he also knew what Earth was prepared to do if they chose wrong. The next move belonged to the Coalition. But time was running out. 3 days passed in tense waiting. The Coalition fleet stayed where it was, neither moving forward nor moving back. The Fifth Fleet hung in space like a sword ready to strike. Both sides watched each other. Both sides ran computer simulations of battles. But nobody fired a shot. Jake spent those days in constant communication. Delegates who had supported the war declaration suddenly wanted to talk to him privately. They said they were worried. They asked questions about Earth's intentions. They hinted that they were unhappy with High Chancellor Vexler's leadership. Jake listened to all of them, staying polite but not making any promises. The truth was that Earth's government was having direct talks with the Coalition leaders. Jake was not part of those talks, but he understood the basic situation. The Coalition wanted a way to back down that would not make them look weak. Earth was willing to help them save face, but it would cost them. On the 4th day, Jake got a message to come to an emergency council meeting. This time, the feeling in the room was different. There were no big speeches or confident statements. Instead, there was a feeling of defeat, like watching a storm finally pass after days of thunder. High Chancellor Vexler looked like he had aged years in just days. His 4 eyes were dull. His body looked tired. When he spoke, his voice had none of its old power. The Galactic Council has reached a decision about the recent misunderstanding with Earth. Jake raised an eyebrow at the word misunderstanding, but said nothing. After careful thought and long talks with Earth's government, the Coalition has agreed to withdraw its declaration of war. The disagreements about territory that caused this problem will be solved through mediation and negotiation instead of military action. Sounds of relief filled the chamber. Several delegates relaxed visibly in their seats. Vexter continued, reading from a prepared statement. Because this was so serious, the Krillian Dominion, the Xanther Collective, and the Morpheus Empire agreed to these terms. First, all contested territories will stay under human control while we work out the details. Second, the Coalition will pay money to Earth for the costs of sending military forces to respond to the declaration. Third, we will create a joint commission to improve communication and prevent similar problems in the future. Jake stood. Ambassador Morrison, speaking for Earth, we accept these terms. He paused. However, I want to make one thing very clear to this council. Every eye turned to him. What happened here was not a misunderstanding. It was a deliberate act of aggression based on wrong calculations and pride. The coalition thought Earth would back down. You thought we would negotiate from weakness. You thought we would accept whatever terms you offered. Jake's voice was hard. You were wrong. And the only reason we are accepting this peaceful solution is because Earth prefers peace. Not because we had to. Not because we were afraid, but because we choose diplomacy over destruction. He walked to the center of the chamber. Let this serve as a lesson to every species in this council. Earth is not aggressive. We are not conquerors. We are explorers, scientists, diplomats. We want to be part of the galactic community. We want friendship and cooperation. His face became cold, but we are not weak. We are not prey. And if anyone ever makes the mistake of declaring war on humanity again, we will not show the same restraint. Is that understood? Silence answered him. Then slowly, delegates began nodding. Even Vexter, defeated and humiliated, gave a slight nod of his head. Good, Jake said, returning to his seat. Then let us move forward. There is work to be done? The meeting ended quickly after that. As delegates left, Jake noticed they were looking at him differently now. Not with fear exactly, but with new understanding. Earth was not just another species joining the galactic community. They were something different. Something dangerous that had chosen to be peaceful. Pix came over as Jake gathered his things. Ambassador, that was intense. It needed to be, Jake replied. They had to understand that backing down was not a victory for them. It was mercy from us. Will the coalition really honor these terms? They have no choice. If they break the agreement, Earth will simply send more ships, and next time we will not negotiate. Jake smiled slightly. Besides, the money they have to pay is substantial. It will take years for them to pay it all. That is years of being reminded that they lost. They walked through the corridors toward Jake's office. Around them, the station was slowly returning to normal. Ships that had left were starting to come back. Business was resuming. Life went on. When they reached his office, Jake found a message waiting from Admiral Bennett. He opened it privately, reading the short text. Ambassador Morrison, well done. The fleet will begin standing down in 12 hours. The 7th and 9th fleets have been recalled. They will arrive halfway here for show, then return home. Earth is pleased with the outcome. Secretary Grant sends her compliments. Jake smiled and deleted the message. Everything had gone according to plan. The coalition had been given a demonstration of Earth's military power. They had been forced to back down. They had to pay for what they did. More importantly, every other species in the sector now understood that humanity was not to be messed with. A knock at the door stopped his thoughts. Come in, he called. Ambassador Trill entered, looking tired but relieved. Ambassador Morrison, I wanted to thank you personally for how you handled this crisis. Many of us feared it would end in war. So did I, Jake admitted. I am glad it did not. The Quellan people have always valued peace. We are grateful that Earth shares this value, Trill paused. Though I must admit, we are also grateful that Earth has the strength to back up its diplomatic positions. Peace through strength, Jake said. It is an old idea, but it works. Nobody wants to fight someone who can fight back. Indeed. Trill looked at Pix, who was organizing files in the corner. I understand your assistant chose to stay during the crisis instead of evacuating? He did. I am lucky to have him, as we are lucky to have you as humanity's representative. Trill bowed slightly, a Quellan gesture of respect. I hope this will lead to stronger relations between our peoples. I hope so too, Ambassador. After Trill left, Jake stood at his window, watching as the Fifth Fleet began leaving. One by one, the massive warships jumped back to their home systems. Their mission was done without firing a single shot. It was, Jake thought, the best kind of military victory. The kind that never became a battle. Ambassador? Pix asked quietly. May I ask you something? Of course. You never seemed worried, not when war was declared, not when the coalition fleet was preparing to attack, not even when you stood alone before the council. Why? Jake was quiet for a long moment, thinking about his answer. Because I know my people, Pix. I know that when we are threatened, humans do not panic. We prepare, we plan, we act. It is what we have always done, from the first human who picked up a rock and used it as a weapon to the engineers who designed those warships. He turned from the window to face his assistant. But more than that, I knew that Earth would not abandon us, would not give away our rights or leave us alone. When you are part of a tribe, when you are part of a family, you protect each other. That is fundamental to who we are as humans. So you trusted that Earth would send help? I did not just trust. I knew, Jake said. The moment that war was declared, I knew that somewhere Admiral Bennett was already loading his ships. I knew that Secretary Grant was already making plans. I knew that across Earth, in military bases and government offices and homes, humans were preparing to defend their own. Jake smiled. That is what Deathworld species do, Pix. We protect the tribe. Always. Outside, the last of the Fifth Fleets. Ships disappeared into faster-than-light travel, leaving only empty space and memories of what might have been. Jake poured himself a fresh cup of coffee, real coffee, the good kind, and sat in his chair. So what happens now? Pix asked. Now? Jake looked at his schedule. Now we get back to work. There are trade agreements to make, cultural exchanges to arrange, scientific projects to start. The boring, normal work of diplomacy. After everything that just happened, that sounds almost disappointing, Jake laughed. That is the thing about being human, Pix. We can be incredibly violent when necessary. We can bring terrible force when we need to. But what we really want, what we have always wanted, is to explore, to learn, to build relationships, to be part of something bigger than ourselves. He pointed at the diplomatic station visible through his window. This place, this council, this galactic community, this is what we dreamed of when we first looked up at the stars. Not war, not conquest, but connection. And if another species threatens that dream, Jake's smile faded slightly, then they will learn the same lesson the Coalition just learned. That humans are happy to be your friends, your partners, your allies, but if you insist on being our enemies, he shrugged. Well, we are very good at that too. Pix was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I think I understand now. Why you never panicked. Why you just waited? Oh? Because you knew the Armada was coming, not just the ships, but everything they represented. Earth's power, Earth's commitment, Earth's refusal to back down. Pix smiled slightly. You were never alone. You just had to wait for help to arrive. Exactly, Jake said, raising his coffee cup in a small toast. To the Fifth Fleet. The months following the standoff brought many changes to the diplomatic station. Species that had been quiet before now wanted to talk to Earth. Trade delegations arrived weekly. Scientific teams requested joint research projects. Cultural ambassadors proposed exchange programs. The galaxy had seen Earth's military power and decided that friendship was the better option. Jake found himself busier than ever. His office became a meeting place for delegates who wanted to build bridges with humanity. Some came because they genuinely wanted cooperation. Others came because they were afraid of being on the wrong side if another conflict happened. Jake welcomed them all, though. You could tell the difference. Pix had been promoted to full diplomatic status, no longer just an assistant, but a junior ambassador in his own right. The Quellans still worked closely with Jake, But now he had his own responsibilities and his own office down the hall. Jake was proud of him. One morning, about 6 months after the crisis, Jake was reviewing trade proposals when his communication panel lit up. It was a request for a private meeting from someone unexpected. High Chancellor Vexler. Jake considered declining but decided there might be value in the conversation. He agreed to meet in a neutral location, a small conference room away from the main council chambers. Vexler arrived looking very different from the proud leader who had declared war months ago. His shell seemed duller. His 4 eyes lacked their old fire. He moved slowly as if carrying a great weight. Ambassador Morrison, Vexler said, taking a seat. Thank you for agreeing to see me. Chancellor, Jake replied neutrally. What can I do for you? Vexler was quiet for a moment, as if gathering courage. I wanted to speak with you privately before I leave the station. My retirement becomes official next week. I heard about that. I hope you find peace in your retirement. Peace, Vexler repeated, almost laughing. Yes, that is what I should have sought from the beginning. He looked directly at Jake. I came to apologize, Ambassador Morrison. What I did, what I led the coalition to do, was wrong. It was foolish and it nearly cost many lives. Jake studied the Krillian carefully. The apology seemed genuine. Why did you do it, Chancellor? You must have known Earth would respond. I thought I knew, Vexler said. Our intelligence said you had limited military resources. Our analysts said humans were focused on exploration and science, not war. We thought you would negotiate, perhaps give up some territory to avoid conflict. He shook his head. We were wrong about everything. Not everything, Jake said. You were right that we prefer exploration and science. You were right that we want peace. You just misunderstood what that meant. How so? You thought peace was all we had? You did not realize peace was what we chose, Jake explained. Humans have the capacity for incredible violence. Our history is full of wars and conflicts. But we learn from that history. We learn that peace is better. That cooperation achieves more than conquest. That building is better than destroying. He leaned forward. But learning to prefer peace does not mean forgetting how to fight. It just means we save fighting for when there is no other choice. Vexler nodded slowly. I understand now. Too late, but I understand. He stood to leave, then paused. May I offer you some advice, Ambassador? From one diplomat to another? Please. Other species will test you. They will push boundaries to see how far they can go before Earth responds. Some will do it deliberately. Others will do it without thinking, Vexler said. Do not let them mistake patience for weakness. Do not let them forget what happened here. I will not, Jake promised. But I also will not let them think of us only as warriors. We are more than that. Yes, Vexler agreed. You are. I hope the galaxy comes to understand that before anyone else makes my mistake. After the former chancellor left, Jake sat alone in the conference room for a while, thinking about the conversation. Vexler had learned his lesson, but would others? Would the galaxy remember the week of the Armada as a warning, or would time dull the memory? The answer came gradually over the following years. Earth's reputation changed. Species still respected human military power, but they also came to respect human science, human art, human philosophy. Trade flourished. Joint research produced breakthroughs. Cultural exchanges created understanding, but there were still tests. Small ones at first. A trade ship detained for inspection that took too long. Survey rights disputed in border regions. Bureaucratic obstacles that seemed designed to frustrate human operations. Each time, Jake responded with patience and diplomacy. But each time, he also made sure to remind the other party what happened when diplomacy failed. He never made direct threats. He did not need to. The memory of the Fifth Fleet hanging in space was threat enough. 2 years after the crisis, Earth announced a new initiative. They were building a permanent deep space station in the sector. It would serve as a hub for trade, science, and diplomacy. But everyone understood it would also serve as a military base if needed. The station would have docking facilities for 100, Warships and defensive capabilities that rivaled a small fleet. Some species protested. They said Earth was militarizing the sector. Jake listened to the complaints with patience, then made a simple statement. Earth builds this station for the same reason we maintain our fleet. Not because we want war, but because we want peace. Peace backed by the ability to defend ourselves and our interests. If you prefer we remove our military presence, we can discuss that. But first, each of you should ask yourselves a question. If another coalition decides to declare war, who will you call for help? The protests stopped. The station was built. And when it opened, every major species sent representatives to the dedication ceremony. They came not just because they had to, but because they wanted to be on good terms with Earth. Jake was there for the opening, now serving as the senior human diplomat in the sector. He had turned down promotions that would have sent him back to Earth. This was his place, his mission. He understood the aliens. They understood him. That understanding was valuable during the ceremony. He stood with Pix, now Ambassador Pix, watching the speeches and celebrations. Do you ever regret it? Pix asked quietly. Staying out here instead of going home? Sometimes, Jake admitted. I miss Earth, the forests and oceans. Real weather, not recycled air. Food that does not come from synthesizers. He smiled. But this is where I am needed. Building bridges. Maintaining relationships. Making sure what happened with Vexter never happens again. You have done well. Earth should be proud. Earth is patient, Jake said. They know that building lasting peace takes time. Sometimes it takes generations, but it is worth the effort. As the ceremony continued, Jake thought about all that had happened. The war that almost was, the Armada that arrived just in time, the lesson the galaxy had learned, and the work that still remained. Humanity had proven it could fight. Now it needed to prove it could lead. Not through force, but through example, by showing that a species from a death world could be more than just survivors. They could be builders, teachers, friends. Years passed. Jake grew older. His brown hair turned fully gray, then white. But he stayed at his post, working and teaching and building relationships. He trained younger diplomats, human and alien both. He shared his experiences and his lessons. One of his students was a young human woman named Kate Rogers. She was smart and dedicated, with a natural talent for understanding alien perspectives. Jake saw himself in her and took extra time with her training. Remember, he told her during one of their sessions, diplomacy is not about winning. It is about finding solutions that everyone can accept. But sometimes the other side needs to understand what happens if there is no diplomatic solution. How do I show that without threatening them? Kate asked. You do not threaten. You just make sure they remember, Jake said. The week of the Armada happened 20 years ago, but I still reference it in negotiations. Not as a threat, but as history. As context. As a reminder that Earth can be pushed only so far. And if they forget? Jake smiled. Then Earth will remind them. But that is not your job as a diplomat. Your job is to make sure they never need reminding. Eventually, the time came for Jake to retire. He was 73 years old and had spent 48 years in diplomatic service. His replacement was Kate, the student who had learned so well that she had surpassed her teacher in some ways. On his last day, the council held a ceremony in his honor. Delegates from dozens of species came to speak about his work. Even some Krillians attended, though Vexter had died years earlier. They spoke of the bridges Jake had built, the conflicts he had prevented, the understanding he had fostered. When it was his turn to speak, Jake kept it short. I came to the stars because I wanted to explore, to learn, to meet new species and understand different perspectives, he said. Along the way, I had to help prevent a war. That war became the defining moment of my career, but it was not the most important thing I did. He looked around the chamber at all the faces, human and alien. The most important thing was what came after. Building trust. Creating partnerships. Showing that humans are not just Deathworlders or warriors. We are people who dream of a better future and work to make that future real. He paused, remembering that day 20 years ago when war had been declared and he had simply